On this occasion, we are going to delve into the life of one of the most enigmatic characters of the 19th century, in order to discover how the German filmmaker Werner Herzog adapted him to his personal imaginary in his film The Enigma of Kaspar Hauser. Our story begins on May 26th of 1828. It was Monday and the city of Nuremberg was empty, as on the holiday of Pentecost it was common among the local citizens to go to the countryside or to neighboring towns to celebrate. Rarely could the Anschlitzplatz be seen so empty. At that moment, a shoemaker who had been left behind, making the last preparations for an urgent job, came out of his house. And his astonishment was enormous when he saw that in the middle of the square stood a 16-year-old teenager with a completely lost look, holding two mysterious letters in his hand and seemingly totally unable to stand on his own legs. The shoemaker, seeing him so helpless, approached him to ask him what was wrong, but the boy could only say, "I want to be a horseman like my father was." He seemed to not be able to say anything else and was very insistent, so the shoemaker thought it best to accompany him to the house of the local cavalry officer, Captain von Wesnich, to whom one of the letters was addressed. Once there, the captain and the shoemaker read the letters the young man had brought with him. The first was from Hauser's caretaker, who claimed that he had taught him to read and write, but had never allowed him to take a single step outside his home. The letter ended by inviting the captain to either take Hauser in or hang him, whichever he preferred. The other letter was from the mother and was supposedly addressed to the caretaker, noting that the boy's name was Kaspar, that he was born on April 30, 1812, and that his father, who had died of illness, was a soldier in the 6th Cavalry Regiment. Von Wesnich tried to get more information from the young man, but he could only repeat himself and cry. Finally, he took him to the police, where he was interrogated. The young man managed to surprise everyone when he spelled his own name correctly. The policeman thought he was a vagrant and decided to confine him in one of the towers of the Nuremberg castle. There, he was fed water and bread, as he found milk and meat repugnant. The jailer observed him and found that his reactions showed that, as the letter indicated, he had spent his whole life in captivity. For example, Hauser was surprised by the sounds of the church bells. He also did not understand the nature of mirrors. When a mirror was placed in front of him, he first tried to pull his own reflection, and then looked behind to see if the person he had seen was there. The same thing happened to him with fire. At first, he was dazzled by the light of a candle, and innocently wanted to grab it, which caused him to burn his hand and burst into a terrible cry. Hauser soon became a tourist attraction in the city, and many citizens went to the tower to try to talk to him, and gave him toys. His cell was soon filled with wooden horses and lead soldiers. It soon became clear that the constant influx of visitors was harming Kaspar, and he decided to ban visits. At last, Kaspar Hauser was released from prison and placed in the care of a high school teacher named Domer. Domer succeeded in educating him and discovered in him a great talent for drawing and writing. He also succeeded in expanding his vocabulary. Hauser was very grateful to have a real bed for the first time. According to Domer, this was the first time Hauser had experienced dreams, as an enclosed event, since at first he did not distinguish them as such and told his caregiver about them as if their happenings were real. Around this time, Hauser was able to communicate more fluently and explained that he had spent his childhood and youth in a dark cell. He claimed that every morning he found rye bread and water on the floor. Sometimes the water tasted bitter, and drinking it made him sleep more soundly than usual. On those occasions, upon waking up, Hauser would find that someone had changed his straw and had cut his hair and nails. Hauser claimed that the person was a masked man who visited him shortly before his release. The visitor taught him how to write his own name, stand up and walk. He He then took Hauser to Nuremberg, where he taught him to say the phrase, "I want to be a cavalryman as my father was." A phrase Hauser himself did not even understand at the time. What little remains of Hauser's story is shrouded in mystery. Allegedly, in October 1829, Hauser was attacked by a man whom he identified as his captor. After this assassination attempt, which some believed and others considered a fraud by Hauser himself, the young man went through many tutorships and changes of residence. Many conspiracy theories grew, claiming that the boy was a descendant of a royal family and that an attempt was being made to end his life to avoid a succession crisis. In spite of all precautions, Kaspar Hauser was stabbed on December 14th of 1833 at the Ansbach Castle Square and died of tetanus about 3 days later. His death left open more questions than answers. One of the greatest enigmas in European history had been born. Taking a great leap in time, we go forward to November the 1st of 1974. This was the date on which the feature film The Enigma of Kaspar Hauser was released in West Germany. Although the film is known by that title, its real German title was Jeder für sich und Gott gegen alle, which literally translates as Every man for himself and God against all. If you are familiar with Werner Herzog, you will already know that this is also the title of his autobiography published in 2022. Why would Herzog choose precisely this title out of all of the names in his extensive biography? We believe the answer is simple. Herzog identified deeply with the character of his film. Thus is shown by his own words with interviewer Paul Cronin. "I've always felt that a figure like Kaspar Hauser was not an outsider. He is at the center. He manages to retain his unblemished human dignity, while everyone around him seems to be so hideously conditioned. These people, transformed as they are into domesticated pigs or members of bourgeois society, they are the bizarre ones, not Kaspar. People often say I am a marginal and eccentric filmmaker. When you look at my films, you see there is absolutely nothing eccentric about them. When you sit 3 feet away from me, do you see anything eccentric, do you?" Precisely in these words, we see what motivated Herzog to choose Kaspar Hauser as the subject of his film. Herzog tries to show us life through the eyes of this character made his, who, having spent his whole life in captivity and without human contact, has managed to stay away from civilization, to show that throughout the film, his vision for the world is fresh and powerful, his language much like that of the prophets. Herzog thus shows his discontent with civilization and its tendency to imprison the individual. In this regard, it behooves us to return to the title of the film, Every man for himself and God against all. It's a phrase that Herzog found in the Brazilian cinema novel film Macunaíma, directed by Joaquim Pedro de Andrade, an adaptation of the homonymous novel by Mario de Andrade. In this film, we find a satire led by a paradigmatic character very similar to Herzog's Enigma, since it tells us how an Indian called Macunaíma, born in the interior of the jungle, has to enter the city of Sao Paulo to retrieve a stolen lucky stone. He goes through a great number of hardships when confronted with the suffocating workings of civilization and its innumerable rules. The crucial difference between Macunaíma and Herzog's work is the reaction of a satirical approach. Herzog does not renounce humor, but what he really seeks with his film is the creation of a dreamlike atmosphere, which allows us to experience the story of Kaspar Hauser from the point of view of someone who, in Herzog's words, had no concept of the world, nor of speech, or even of what the sky or a tree looked like. Herzog does not intend to recreate the story as it is, but to evoke it in a poetic way, and he achieved this through the use of long shots, to which he often added a fisheye telephoto lens to the camera, which gave the image a very strange quality. Herzog knew that, to achieve that near catatonic state of the protagonist's perspective, he couldn't just select any actor for such a lead role. He needed someone who could give the character that deep humanity he was looking for. Herzog found him in a documentary directed by Lutz Eichholz about street musicians in Berlin entitled Bruno the Black, One Day a Hunter Blew His Horn. When Herzog saw Bruno S on screen, he was fascinated by him. When he was introduced to him, he discovered that Bruno had had a tough life, analogous to that of the protagonist of his film. Bruno's mother was a prostitute who often abused him. At the age of 3, she beat him so badly that Bruno lost his speech. His mother used this as an excuse to put him in an asylum for children with intellectual disabilities. The rest of his life was spent between institutional homes, asylums, and prisons. As a result of this stormy past, he had developed a great distrust of people. The producers behind the project tried to prevent the choice of Bruno as the protagonist, arguing that it would be very difficult to get a sound performance from him. And they were also reticent about a 41-year-old man playing the role of a 16-year-old boy. For Herzog, none of that mattered. He knew Bruno was the perfect lead because he was able to radiate humanity and purity. Once on set, Herzog realized that Kaspar's story was also Bruno's story. Herzog even had to help him with his dialogue, as he himself maintains. Another issue to deal with was the fact that Bruno did not speak pure German, or even grammatically correct German, but rather a dialect from the Berlin suburb. It was hard work to get him to speak not just in Hochdeutsch, proper German, something like the equivalent of the Queen's English, but also as if he were discovering language for the first time. His articulation elevated the acting. In the end, Herzog achieved his goal. He had turned the film into a sort of almost mystical ritual, in which Kaspar Hauser was revived through Bruno for all audiences to see. Hauser is Herzog, and Hauser is Bruno. But Hauser could also be us if we relearned to look at the world with new eyes. Far from appearances, from strict social norms, from the corsages of language, from social networks, from economics, politics, and culture, there lies a deep, essential human character that is waiting to be unveiled, so that we can return to the fascination of looking at things for the first time. And with that, we wrap up for today's episode. We hope you have liked this. If so, please do leave a like, maybe a comment, and ring the bell with the subscription if you would like to see more of our videos in the future. As we say every video, if we see support for the topic, we will probably take it up again. Well, I am David, this has been all. Have a good day, and this has been A Futile Conquest.